My dear brothers and sisters in the Lord, magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Today is Sunday, the 18th of April, 2021, the third Sunday of Easter. It was on this day, 500 years ago, that the first baptism took place in Cebu. In 1521, the third Sunday of Easter was on the 14th of April. That is why the Archdiocese of Cebu celebrated their own commemoration of the first baptism last Wednesday, April 14, 2021. We originally intended to open the Jubilee door of San Roque Cathedral last April 4, Easter Sunday. As agreed in the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, we were supposed to do a simultaneous nationwide launching of the 500th year of Christianity with a commemoration of the first Mass ever to be celebrated on these islands, which was on Easter Sunday of 1521. But because the government had declared a lockdown in the so-called NCR bubble and prohibited public religious gatherings last Holy Week, we decided to postpone our celebration and wait until we could be allowed even just a 10% maximum physical attendance in our cathedral. You cannot imagine the joy that is now overflowing in my heart that for the first time after many days, we have a congregation, a community present in the San Roque Cathedral. Let us praise the Lord for this blessing. And so we thank the Lord that today, on the third Sunday of Easter, we are finally launching our own quincentennial celebration with the opening of the Jubilee door of the San Roque Cathedral Parish. Kung sakali ho na makadalaw kayo, when you find the occasion to visit our cathedral physically, and pass through the Jubilee door, I invite you to take a close look at the hand-carved wooden relief panels applied on the door. They were sculpted by an artist from my hometown, Betis, in Pampanga. On the upper portion, you will see two round panels depicting the two main historical events that took place 500 years ago. On the left side, the first Mass in Limasawa on Easter Sunday, March 31, 1521. And on the right side, the first baptism held in Cebu on the third Sunday of Easter, April 14, 1521. In the middle portion, aside from the symbols depicting the evangelists on the outer panels, you will see two relief panels depicting the two patrons of our cathedral parish. First, San Roque, the patron of plague victims. And second, Our Lady of Nieva, who is also known as the Virgin of the underground, La Virgen de la Soterrania, the underground Virgin. On the lower middle portion, we added two other relief panels depicting the first two native Filipino saints, whom you know, of course. San Lorenzo Ruiz, who was martyred in Japan, and San Pedro Calungsod, who was martyred in Guam, both lay persons. I hope you forgive us for depicting them wearing face masks to perpetuate the memory of the terrible plague that has coincided with our celebration of the 500th year of the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines, the COVID-19 pandemic. There is an ambulance passing by as I mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic. Please pray for another sick person being brought to the hospital. It was on those two Sundays of Easter in 1521 that the first Christian icons were introduced to our native ancestors. The cross, which Magellan planted on a hill in Limasawa on the day the first Mass was celebrated, and the Santo Niño, the image of the infant Jesus, which Magellan had given as a gift to the wife of Humabon on the day of the first baptism in Cebu. The cross and the Santo Niño were Magellan's tokens of friendship to the natives of Samar, Leyte, and Cebu, who had treated these weary travelers from Spain with kindness. The Italian chronicler Antonio Pigafetta tells us that Magellan and his troops cautiously held on to their weapons as they approached the Visayan Islands because they had earlier been treated with hostility in the first islands that they had sighted in Guam. They were just passing through. We were not their destination. They were just passing through. They wanted to reach the Spice Islands called the Moluccas, following another route, the South Pacific Ocean. They had been out in the open sea, in the South Pacific Ocean, that no one had traversed before that. They had traveled for more than 12 months. They had lost one ship to a storm. They had been deserted by another ship. And so, of the 5 ships, only 3 arrived. They arrived in our islands as total strangers in uncharted waters. They were hungry, sick, tired, sea-beaten, and in need of assistance. They were uncertain if the natives of these newfound islands would be as hostile as the ones they had encountered in Guam. But, to their great surprise, the first native fishermen whom they encountered in Samar disarmed them with their welcoming spirit and their childlike simplicity. It was the disarming smiles of the natives that made them put down their swords. So also did the friendly chieftain Raha Kolambu and his brother. These people did not seem to be afraid of strangers. Hindi ba up to now, we warn children, don't talk to strangers. But these native fishermen, in all their simplicity, talked to the strangers in a language the strangers could not understand. And so I imagine how much sign language they had to use. They had an interpreter called Enrique. He was not from these islands. He was from Malacca, probably speaking something close to Bahasa, Indonesia. But try speaking the Bahasa with a Cebuano, I wonder how much you can understand. And so these natives surprised them because they generously offered them food and drink and helped them take care of their sick companions, bury their dead, and even build a platform on which they could celebrate Mass on Easter Sunday in order to offer thanksgiving to their God. Well, if these Europeans were looking for gold, and that is what we are told, naghahanap sila ng ginto. If they were looking for gold, they were probably surprised to find gold not underground, but in the hearts of the first natives they had encountered in Homonhon, in Samar. They were surprised to find God in these gentle natives who they thought were savages, who they presumed were godless. Oh no, Magellan did not bring God to these islands. He found God in these islands. He was so touched by the nobility of the natives, their compassion, their warmth and hospitality. No wonder Magellan quickly shifted from being a mercenary to behaving like a missionary. They did not come here to evangelize. That was not their purpose. What would suddenly make them behave like missionaries? And this funny Magellan, who is now behaving like a missionary, in spite of all his awkwardness and in spite of his own limited knowledge of the Christian faith, he has found friends. What Magellan discovered in these islands which he called San Lazaro was not a colony, but a fertile ground for the seeds of the Christian faith. And he found the fertile ground in the natives among whom he encountered people of goodwill who quickly became friends. They shared with him the best that they could offer of themselves. And Magellan awkwardly reciprocated them by offering what he thought was also the best that he could offer, his Christian faith. I am sure the chieftains Humabon of Cebu and Kolambu of Limasawa and their families did not exactly think of their baptism as a conversion to a new religion. I am more inclined to believe that they thought of this elaborate ritual they called baptism as no different from the blood compact they had earlier ritualized the native way. They entered into a friendly covenant the native way. Now the natives are entering into a friendly covenant the Spanish way. And obviously, Magellan did not even have enough time to give them catechetical instruction. They were here only for 46 days. But it was enough that on either side there was the willful desire to seal a friendship that would serve as the seedbed for the gospel. Brothers and sisters, I know half of your heart is reacting. I do not want you to think that I am romanticizing the events that had happened in 1521, which in the eyes of many Filipino historians are not even worth celebrating. No doubt, the initial seeds of faith that were sown on the fertile soil of goodwill and friendship were soon corrupted by the bad weeds of hidden economic and political agenda. As in the famous Matthean parable of the weeds and the tares, the good seeds eventually got sabotaged by the weeds of ill will, treachery, and betrayals that led to the tragic encounter with Lapu-Lapu on April 27 in Mactan. It also resulted in the death of Ferdinand Magellan and several of his men, the ensuing hostility even of Humabon, who had been baptized, and the further casualties among the survivors of Mactan, and the bitter parting of ways, their quick departure on May 1, 1521. They arrived on March 16, and they left hurriedly after a tragic incident on May 1, 1521. The tragedy happened only between April 27 to May 1. Everything that happened from March 16 until April 26 was beautiful. But like I said, on the fertile ground, even if God is busy sowing good seeds, the devil is also as busy sowing the weeds. And so we ask the question, did all of it end up in vain? Remember, these flawed human beings had merely served as God's instruments. As the old hymn puts it, we plow the fields and scatter the good seed on the ground, but it is fed and watered by God's almighty hand. It was the Lord who made sure that whatever had germinated from the first sowing in 1521 would be nurtured to fruition by the follow-up expedition that later arrived in 1565, which brought in the first group of missionaries to these islands. If the first icon of Jesus that was introduced to the natives of Cebu was the Santo Niño. The Santo Niño was also the icon that was introduced to the natives of Luzon in one of the first parishes ever to be established by the Augustinians, the Santo Niño de Tondo. It was this mother parish of Santo Niño de Tondo that soon established little chapels called visitas in Tambobong, Malabon, in San Jose, Navotas, and in this place, in Caloocan. Tambobong as early as 1595. San Roque in Caloocan as early as 1765. And we are going to be opening Jubilee doors in San Jose de Navotas and in San Bartolome in Malabon, formerly called Tambobong. These three, San Bartolome, San Jose de Navotas, and San Roque de Caloocan, they were all cut off from the umbilical cord of their common mother parish, Santo Niño de Tondo. And so I'd like to publicly acknowledge my gratitude, express my gratitude to Santo Niño de Tondo, our mother parish. They gifted us today with an image, a replica of the Santo Niño de Tondo. And I hope you noticed. I hope this long historical background now makes you understand why we had the two icons standing there by the threshold of the Jubilee door as soon as I opened it. The cross in the middle and the Santo Niño de Tondo on the side. You will also understand why the Santo Niño is so profoundly embedded in the consciousness of our people, as well as the cross bearing black Nazarene. Lastly, how does this Jubilee celebration relate to our gospel about the disciples' encounter with the risen Christ? The key word that I propose is reality check. Reality check. The Lord said, "Come, check me and know that I am for real." What the Lord did in order to convince His disciples when He manifested His risen life to them, that He was real, not an imagination. He did two things. First, He made them touch His wounded but living body. Second, He opened their minds to understand the Scriptures. First, He said, "Come, touch me and see." This was Jesus' way of saying, "I am neither a ghost nor a Superman." We have no illusion about the way Jesus has continued His work of redemption through real flesh and blood human beings, like the first Christians whom our native ancestors first came into contact with. Magellan and the members of his crew, who were Portuguese and Spaniards and Italians. Or even the missionaries who sustained the work of evangelization in the succeeding centuries. God works. God works through a church that is both holy and sinful. A church that is both holy and sinful. A church that is both divine and human. He speaks and acts through people who bleed, people who fail, people who fall, people who are capable of stupid things, even as they continue to respond to the call to be sons and daughters of God. The second thing Jesus did was to open their minds to the Scriptures. He opened their minds to the realities of the world through the light of the Scriptures, like I am doing this very moment. The Scriptures are supposed to help us understand better our experience, never to run away from it. The Christian faith is never meant to teach us to escape from the world and its many challenges. On the contrary, it teaches us to confront the world head on. It is not about holding on to an illusion or an imagined heaven in the hereafter. Maraming mga tao, nag-iisip, akala nila, ang pag-asa, people who think that hope is just a matter of optimism, of looking at the bright side of life, of thinking positive, of avoiding negativities. What Jesus reveals to us is rather an enduring love. The only source of hope is an enduring love that gives unconditionally, that is ready to pay the price, even at the cost of so much suffering and death. Jesus teaches us how to respond in faith so that we can see the hand of God at work, even in our darkest, even in our most painful experiences. Kaya siguro, patuloy nating hinaharap ang krisis ng pandemya. The COVID-19 has served as a reality check, not only for us Filipinos, but for all humankind. It has opened our minds to the fragility of the earth and our own vulnerability. It has given us the opportunity to awaken from the stupor of our own self-destruct modes and has afforded us the time to be able to reconfigure ourselves and our societies as we should. Let me end with something that will truly give you hope. One of the clearest and the most tangible signs of hope in the midst of hopelessness brought about by this COVID-19 pandemic has been going viral in the social media lately. It all began in a street in Quezon City called Maginhawa Street, when one family invited the rest of the neighborhood to put up a community pantry which people can both freely give to and take from. The slogan written on the cardboard is very simple. It invites people to share according to their ability and to take according to their need. Magbigay ayon sa kakayahan, kumuha batay sa pangangailangan. Ang galing. At sinulat nila sa cardboard, ito yung tamang cardboard. Ito yung tamang cardboard na bubura dun sa malaking kahihiyan ng bayan natin. This is the kind of cardboard that will forever erase the shame of the cardboards that had been hung by killers on thousands of drug suspects that they have killed in the past few years. Saksi tayong lahat dito sa Diocese of Caloocan sa dami ng mga madugong cardboards na nagsasabing addict, pusher, huwag tularan. Kahihiyan natin ito dahil pinayagan natin. Sa araw na ito, burahin natin ang ating kahihiyan. Gumawa tayo ng mga bagong cardboards. Magbigay ng ayon sa kakayahan. Kumuha ng ayon sa pangangailangan. Brothers and sisters, I have the joy to inform you that in partnership with the Caloocan Young Leaders Initiative, the San Roque Cathedral today is opening a community pantry. I would rather see you clap your hands to the community pantry than to the opening of the Jubilee door. This is something you should be proud of. Within just a few days, one little experiment that began in Maginhawa Street has become viral. This is the good virus. It has multiplied exponentially. Please, I beg of you, let us not allow it to fizzle out. This is perhaps the best chain reaction I have ever heard of in the time of crisis. Baka hindi lang pagkain ang pwede nating ilagay sa pantry. Pwede ring gamot, vitamins, damit, tsinelas, anything useful that you're willing to share. Remember, we are gifted to give. That will be a meaningless slogan until we have concretized it. And the community pantry, for me, is one of the most beautiful, spontaneous, and most concrete expressions of gifted to give. It will be a more powerful legacy of the 500th year of Christianity than the opening of a symbolic jubilee door. Today, brothers and sisters, the Lord invites us to touch His wounded body, to heal the world by sharing our food with the hungry, to give flesh to the good news of redemption proclaimed by the Scriptures. Wish ko lang, sana, in every parish, in every mission station, and if possible in every street in this diocese, we will open a community pantry. May the opening of our Jubilee doors throughout the country bring inspiration. May this opening of the Jubilee doors inspire the silent but spontaneous opening of thousands of community pantries all over the world as an expression in flesh and blood that we are indeed gifted to give. Mabuhay ang Panginoon.